So this is the first stop on the train. I'm not super confident on it. It's certainly not as good as the 89, 90K level. But we'll have to see if we get any kind of... Honestly, a bounce back here at 100K, 300 would be really good because, like I said in the last stream, it's really tight between all these invalidations that were posted up when we had that wick down at around 101, 102. And the distance between that, where all these invalidations are, and we're seeing them get flushed out right now, and 100,370 is pretty fucking tight, right? That distance between them. So a bounce there would be really impressive. I don't know if we're going to get it. You know, with the fragile market structure that Bitcoin was showing, paired with the fact that the S&P is down in a big way today, right? S&P down nearly 1%. It was just a perfect fucking storm for Bitcoin to dump. Pumping here actually would not be that great. It's a little bit of a front run. It's actually better to go a little bit lower and tag the full accumulation because front running this could get a little spooky. It's about close enough, so it's kind of hard to tell. But if we hit free fall, which, you know, it might happen today, then you guys know what to look for, right? Talked about this plenty of times. 89K is pretty much the decider of whether or not we are going to remain in an upward bull market for the next foreseeable future, or if we're heading into, you know, a year of bear market. I had nightmares from your video. It was spooky as a motherfucker. Hey man, you know, what can I say, dude? If it looks bad to me, I'm gonna say it. And I mean, I don't want it to dump, right? Particularly this bad. This is fucking brutal, guys. A 5% drawdown is pretty bad in a day. Yeah, it's getting a bit spooky here. So if you don't know, usually, and this is kind of a meme. I talked about it last stream a bit too. Usually in Bitcoin, there's 4 years up and 1 year down. 4 years up, 1 year down. We just hit the 4-year mark up earlier in October, unfortunately. I'm not a huge believer in that kind of shit, but it is fucking crazy, right? Like that early October we hit the what would be the end of the 4-year up cycle if it's all synced up, and now we're actually getting these bigger moves to the bottom side. So that basically what that would mean if it does come to fruition. By the way, I'm not a huge believer in it, but it is spooky. What that would mean is that we'd be in a bear market until December or Q4 of next year. I don't think that, just so everyone's aware, that's what usually happens in Bitcoin, but yeah, I don't know if that dynamic is really there. So I'm still going to do all my normal stuff. I'm not going to just subscribe to that idea that we're in some kind of, you know, cycle that is so perfectly easy to time. I think honestly, the Max Payne thing would be us not following that cycle. So I'm still going to look at the structure regardless and make sure that, you know, I'm doing what I normally do and stick to my principles. I'm just letting you know that's what a lot of people seem to believe, and it has happened at least 3 times in the past. So this is number 4 if it happens again. But like I said, I'm not a big believer of that. If we can hold here, Bitcoin's back in business. We'll likely get another all-time high sooner than later. I don't think we're gonna wait till we're not gonna have a year of a bear market, right? Right now is a pretty big fight, and if we don't hold right now, then we go back into the void. So, you know, we went straight up here, right? There is a little bit of data here, but I didn't really derive anything significant from that structure in terms of what we can look for. Maybe, you know, maybe you see some kind of, you know, structure that develops there, and if that's the case and it looks good, then I'll change my mind. But as far as what we can see and how much data we do have, I would still classify this as kind of a void. So hold now or sink to 90K, hold 90K or bear market. Now, if we do see a nice little bouncerino, which, by the way, it's a falling knife right now. I mean, you're going to be getting in front of a stampede of fear if you're going to try and fight this. You kind of got to let the dust settle a little bit. Why exactly the 89K candle? Because that's where the structure was. So if you remember back at the beginning of the year, Bitcoin had just hit another all-time high. It hit an all-time high in 2024 at the end of the year, and then it went for another one. So Bitcoin goes crazy, goes above 100K for the first time, and now everyone's saying, okay, it's time to long Bitcoin. Like even the bears in this range, there were bears in this range, and they kind of got fucked and maybe changed perspective when we got that new all-time high above 100K, right? So if they're bearish here, they're likely going to be bullish here. Anyways, depending on whoever the market participants are, it doesn't really matter. But where were their invalidations, right? We made so many lows that were in the same spot. So we have a clear spot where leverage was going to get flushed out, and a lot of the spot market that was scared, or spot market selling, leverage market getting flushed out. That's a lot of liquidity on the sell side of the market. So we sort of saw this accumulation phase start here, which is a really wide range. So if you don't agree with me in that sense, I understand that, because it's a really fucking wide range. But based off how I read structure, this is where the liquidity had conviction. Instead of having a mixture of red and green, it was pretty much all red, right? So that's where liquidity started to happen. You can argue that's where accumulation started to happen. So that's where it's likely to be defended. Now we could wick a little bit into this, right? Depending on how violent the dump gets, we could wick a little bit like that or something. But the good news is we have plenty of room to breathe if that was the case, right? So the distance between basically this line and this line is a lot of breathing room. So yeah, we could go a little bit under 89K. I mean, we could go as far, honestly, we could go as far as like 85K on a wick. Like a quick move like that would be fine. What you don't want to do is first off, you don't want to get this close to it, because now you've got every single person who longed in 2025 that has not been invalidated. So the longs that are still open perpetually on the 2025, now you have all of them grouped in one spot, right? Everything from this range has invalidations likely here, so stop losses here. And then if we do start to form some kind of range over here, that low, you've got it all clustered together. So you really don't want that to happen. And what would be even worse is if you like hung around here, right? You start building structure here or something. Then you've really got a lot of invalidations in the same spot. So that's no bueno. Like I said, we could dip, as far as like 85 with a quick wick, and this would be fine. This is the ideal scenario. If either one of these two things happen, we're not heading into a bear market. We're likely getting another all-time high, and we'll probably get a big one at that. So that's the first or second area to pay attention to. The first area to pay attention to is where we're at right fucking now, because this never had the high time frame test. So we could get bailed out. The FOMO rally could continue if we see support come in here. Now there's a couple things that are a little concerning here. Obviously, like I said earlier, the stock market's down pretty big. The VIX kicked up, but it hasn't kicked up to our spot yet. So I'll show that to you in a second, but it's, what, I'll fucking show it to you now. VIX is kicking up. Actually, let me do it side by side because it's not saving my chart. Give me 1 second. Okay. Oh god, look at Ethereum, dude. Look at what they did to Ethereum. Alright, so here. So we kicked up on the VIX. We haven't hit we basically got above 20, but I'm eyeballing 21 to 22, 22 to 23, okay? What the chart shows. That's kind of concerning for me that we haven't tagged that. We did get the local one, which is good, but basically to say that maybe the dumping on the S&P isn't done yet. I really hope it's done, because if the dumping on the S&P is done, then Bitcoin can maybe survive here at above 100K. But if it's not done and this sort of comes to fruition, then that means that it should line up with the test at 89K. There's obviously the psychological level too, right? 100K is a big psychological level. People will be likely to bid if we go right when we go under 100K. The question is, will those bids be enough to stop a fucking stampede? We need more fear and MicroStrategy below 230. Gandalf said he will be back on the third day. Yeah, it's getting a little bit ruthless here, boys. There's a lot of bids coming in. There's a lot of icebergs that have set up shop, but the price really doesn't give a fuck about those. Now, liquidity is getting thicker, right? We're heading into deeper icebergs. The closer bids are getting thicker, but so is the ask side of the price. The liquidity is thick on both sides of the market. Sometimes you'll see when we dip this far that the ask side of the market will be super thin. But now it looks like, they're scrambling to get delta neutral because of this volatility. You don't always get 5% downward moves on Bitcoin, right? they're trying to get delta neutral here. And so they're going to stack that ask side of the book to be able to exit a lot of those positions. We need something to show up in a big way, and it needs to show up soon, or we will continue to deep dive here. So as far as Bitcoin is concerned, this is the first stop on the train. Let me delete a lot of these lines. If we don't hold this, and then the breathing room for this range, by the way, is right here.